Good to see you, Erroll. We have to stop meeting like this.
Paul, distinguished biographer that you are, author of such critically acclaimed works as Rough Magic, biography of Sylvia Plath, and Salinger biography. What was Billie Holiday's allure for you as a subject? What drew you to Billie Holiday?
Well, I think first of all, it had to be the music. You know, I can't remember when I wasn't hearing Billie Holiday music. And it was just one of those perennial figures that you keep going back to and back to. And then eventually, when you start looking at the work that's been published about her, particularly the early biographies, I was concerned because there didn't seem to be the empathy that I felt she deserved as a figure, particularly for the time in which she lived, the 40s and the 50s being dominated by, conservatism and Jim Crow, and then the two movies that we have come to know, Lady Sings the Blues, where the Louis McKay character is completely fictional, nothing to do with reality. And then more recently, and this is what really set me off, the United States versus Billie Holiday, which is total fiction, just total fiction. Someone asked me, what's true about the movie? And I said, there's a title card at the end that gives the date she died. That's true. Everything else before it is fiction. So I thought, someone needs to do a book on this woman that will put her in the proper historical perspective for what she deserves, for what she accomplished in her career, this enormous body of important musical work. And so my agent said, if you put together a proposal, and you were stupid enough to buy it. And here we are.
Your agent knows where stupidity resides in publishing. Why did you decide to frame the book as you did, focusing not conventionally on the sweep of her life, but on her last year?
Well, what I wanted to do was give a really intimate portrait of her, because I had done, the sweeping biographies with Salinger, for example, where you could do the whole arc of his life. And I wanted to be able to go into the rooms with her to see how she lived and what she was thinking and who her friends were and who did she talk to on the phone and who was in her address book. Aretha Franklin was in her address book. And to get those kind of details, you really have to limit the scope of the biography. And so I thought if I focus on the last year of her life, that'll give me the opportunity to really do a deep dive into her in a way that these other books before her have not done. There were traditional biographies that covered the whole range of her life. And it just so happened, obviously it's the last year of her life, so the drama is built in. There's a clock ticking and she's gonna die. But she also recorded, in that last 14 months, I think her best album, which is Lady in Satin. I think it's a masterpiece. I say it in the book. You let me keep it in the book. And so you have these huge, enormous highs that she was living through. And then you have the heartache, as I call it in the subtitle. So when you get to the end of the book, you feel like you really know her, feel like you spent time with her. And the odd thing, well, it's not odd because I was hoping this would happen, but the reviews are saying that, and the people who read the book are saying they feel like they know Billie after they read it.
The critic Gary Giddens has said, how many Billie Holidays are there, and which do you prefer? Elated or dour? Funny or truculent? Sweet or sour? Our Lady of Sorrows or 52nd Street Queen? Early Billie or late Billie? Billie of Hope or Heartache? Billie with Prez or with strings? Lady Day or Lady Nightmare? Or Lady in Ermine? Lady Be Good? Lady in Red? Lady Luck? Lady Blue? Lady Divine? The lady who swings the band? Lady Mine? Crank up the record machine, listen closely, and take your choice. would you care to describe in brief the travails of her last year and how she transcended them, and which ladies predominate?
Well, we tackle a lot of those ladies in there. We definitely, I don't whitewash this portrait of her at all. There's the negative stuff in her life, and there was a lot of negative stuff.
What was the negative stuff?
Well, she
that
definitely,
we won't whitewash tonight.
yeah, she definitely had a drug addiction problem in the 40s that was extremely severe. She had been a target since 1939 of the government because of her association with Cafe Society and the various members of the Communist Party that were attached to Cafe Society. When she started singing Strange Fruit there in 1939, that made her an even bigger target. And so she had been followed by various agencies of the government since 1939, and then she develops a drug problem. So she allows herself to become an easily, marked target. And so they pursued her, busted her. They were in cahoots with her manager, agent, who convinced her not to have an attorney when she had to appear in court. She thought she was going to the hospital for help. They sent her to prison for a year and a day. She served most of that sentence. And so that really, I do tell all of that in the book in a flashback. So I would say that was fairly negative information about her. She also, Billie could have a temper. She could be, her favorite word was motherfucker, which she used all the time. When I interviewed Annie Ross, and she gave me the last interview that she gave about Billie, every other word that she said was motherfucker, so I could tell they were best friends. And so we showed that side over to her as well. She could easily get into a fight. She had a good right hook. So, but we also saw the glamorous side with the nightgown, with the evening gowns and the mink coats and the whole image that she created, which was her.
Have you ever heard the expression half a motherfucker?
No, I have not. What's a half a motherfucker?
Half a motherfucker was somebody who was, in those days he was called a dwarf, who was an announcer at I think, on 52nd Street at a jazz club.
At one of the clubs.
And Lester Young, Prez, called him a half a motherfucker.
Well, he would.
Okay, so much of what we think we know about Billie Holiday comes through a haze of misrepresentations and lies and, of course, government malfeasance. Who is responsible for that?
It's a combination. The government really did pursue her for 20 years from 39 to 59. I mean, to the point where they arrested her on her deathbed.
What accounted for the relentlessness?
Well, I include a quote from Colonel White, George White, who was the head of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics in San Francisco, which I think actually gets to it. And it basically said, she had her minks and she had her gowns and she had her cars and she had her jewelry. She was the big woman, the big lady everywhere she went, implying she was a successful, powerful black woman at a time when that was not acceptable to a lot of people, and she had to be brought down. As Annie Ross told me, she had to be brought down a notch or two, and that's what they did. And they used the drug addiction, they used her association with the communist, members of the Communist Party. They used a whole variety of reasons to go after her. And they created this image of her in the press as a criminal, as a heroin addict. And she was really, Sonny Rollins, when I interviewed him, he says, you'd read the paper every day, there's something negative about her. They were just relentless about going after her. Really, all the way up until the point where she was on her deathbed. They arrested her on her deathbed and tried to get her to appear before a grand jury when she was in critical condition. She couldn't get out of the bed, and they wanted her to appear before a grand jury.
To what degree did she herself contribute?
As you know, because you encouraged me to play this up in the book, which I've done, Billie contributed a lot to the misinformation. if you read Lady Sings the Blues, her autobiography that came out in 1956, I'd say about half of it is just totally made up, not even related to the truth. About half of it is accurate, and so the job of the journalist is to figure out, okay, which half is accurate so I can use this, and which half is not so I can just ignore it. And that took a lot of time and fact-checking and talking to people. But I do quote from the book, in my book, because some of it is true, but a lot of it is not. And she continually did that. I guess the biggest misconception is that everybody thought she was born in Baltimore because she told everybody she was born in Baltimore. Her family told her she was born in Baltimore, and it wasn't until 1954 when she got her passport to go on a European tour for the first time that she discovered from the State Department that she was born in Philadelphia. But for the next 5 years, she continued to tell everybody she was born in Baltimore. And in her book, she said she was born in Baltimore. So she contributed herself to the misinformation that's out there. And in the early biographies, they say she was born in Baltimore.
Who came up with Lady Sings the Blues, the title of that book?
Well, you know, she wanted to call her autobiography Bitter Crop, which is what the title of my book is. And Doubleday said, no, you know, that's a little dark. And it's connected to Strange Fruit because Bitter Crop is the last two words of Strange Fruit. So maybe this is not where we should go. And they picked the more acceptable, in their minds, commercial Lady Sings the Blues, which was a record she had recorded. She had taken a Herb Nichols song, an instrumental song, and she'd written the words for it. The Herb Nichols song was Serenade, and she wrote the words Lady Sings the Blues and put that on the Herb Nichols song, and that became Lady Sings the Blues. So they collaborated, sort of, and then that was on the Lady Sings the Blues album, which came out in connection with the biography, the autobiography.
Okay, let's go back to the autobiography. What would you say are the most egregious misrepresentations of Billie Holiday, not only in the biography, but in popular lore?
Well, the thing that caused a lot of trouble at the time and afterwards is that one thing she claimed in the book is that she wrote the music to Strange Fruit. There's a whole paragraph about how she wrote the music and had some help from her friends. Well, Abel Maripol, who actually did write the music, was not very happy about this. And so there was a long sort of, you wouldn't say feud, because he was very happy that she had recorded the song, because she really did make it famous. But it was a really touchy subject, and still is with his children. And by the way, if you buy the book now, Lady Sings the Blues, it still says that she wrote the music to the song. They've never taken that paragraph out, but she didn't write the music to that song. So in terms of music, it's important because, you know, as you know, Time magazine called it the song of the century in 1999. So the authorship of that is important, at least from a musical point of view.
Well, as long as we're talking about songwriting, we tend to think of Billie Holiday chiefly as a singer, but she was an extraordinary writer of songs too. Can you comment on that?
Right. This past weekend, I had a piece in the Wall Street Journal that was titled Billie Holiday was a songwriter too. She wrote 15 songs that we know of. Some sources say 19, but I couldn't confirm the last 4, so I say she wrote at least 15. Billie had a way of saying that she did stuff that she didn't do, so I'm not sure about those last 4 songs. But 5 of those 15 songs are what are now considered jazz and blues classics. Billie's Blues, Fine and Mellow, Don't Explain, Lady Sings the Blues, and God Bless the Child. So she wrote 15 songs, and 1/3 of them are classics. So I would say, as a percentage, this is a pretty extraordinary body of work.
That's pretty good ratio.
And we forget that element of her, again, because of the prevalent, negative press that was constantly pumped out about her during her lifetime. And even now, when you see those 2 movies, she's portrayed basically as a heroin addict who needed the men in her life to help her get from one day to the next. That's not an accurate portrait of Billie Holiday. And by the way, after the 40s, she dabbled with drugs, and she dabbled a lot with drugs, but she never had that level of dependency on drugs that she had in the 40s. And Hazel Scott gave this great quote right around the time Lady Sings the Blues, the movie, came out. She said, Billie had a problem, but she addressed it, and by and large after that she could cope pretty well, and she went on to have a pretty normal life. It was the alcohol that killed her. She died of cirrhosis of the liver because she wouldn't stop drinking the gin because it helped her cut the heroin hunger, as she put it.
Let's move on to her music. One of the quotes that I love most about her, one of the remarks that I love most about her, is Sonny Rollins, who said that she is at least a genius.
Yes.
She is at least a genius. Now, what is remarkable about her is that her voice is absolutely singular. It's always instantly recognizable. Yet it has to be allowed that hers is, her range is rather slim. Her range is limited.
Very limited.
So what accounts for this, the mystery of her achievement?
Well, I have a quote from David Amram in the book, which I think gets to the heart of it. And she had a limited range, but he said that she sang because she really did change the direction of American music. Before then, you had this sort of stylized.
No, we have to acknowledge that she herself gave credit to Louis Armstrong.
Louis Armstrong. That's where it all started, Louis Armstrong, 1928. It all started with Louis Armstrong. She said that in every interview that she could say it in. But he wasn't a singer. He wasn't really known as a singer.
You couldn't tell him that.
Well, I know.
But she called you a white motherfucker.
But she took what he did and she popularized it, basically. And what she did was she rejected that stylized, the la-di-da singing, I call it, very woo. She rejected all that and developed this, and just went for the vernacular, like the everyday language. And she sang a song as if she was speaking it to you. And as David Amram said, she made a soul-to-soul connection, which is the most important thing a person can do. My soul connects to your soul, and she could do that with a song.
But she could do that with, songs that are startling for their triteness.
Right, that was her genius.
Songs like, I love what a moonlight can do. Ooh. Why is that so riveting and captivating?
Or she could take a song like Tenderly, which is, just a pop tune, a popular tune, but she could make it feel as if it were a confession that she was making to you. There was such a confessional quality to what she was singing. So she could take these very ordinary, popular tunes of the day and make them her own to the point where, it was just hard for anyone else to sing them after that, the way she sang them.
Why would Sinatra have said that she has influenced just about everybody who sings after her?
Right, he said that in 1958, the summer of 1958, in an article that he wrote, in which the main point he made in the article was that his career, his singing style was really based on Billie Holiday. He would routinely go down to 52nd Street during the time he was with Ava Gardner and study, because this is when he was breaking away from the big bands and starting to be an individual performer. And he would sit on the front row and study her night after night. Billie always downplayed that. She'd say, Frankie, I just taught you how to bend a note at the end. That's all I taught you. But he really learned the phrasing, which became his hallmark. He really learned that from her. And he showed up at the end of her life when she was on her deathbed, one of the few celebrities who made it up there, by the way, to tell her that while she was dying, that what he learned from her really did affect his singing style.
What is the importance of Billie Holiday's life to us today, to the culture? How has she remained still relevant and resonant?
Well, it's funny, I teach at Hunter College, and I routinely, every semester, I teach Strange Fruit. And I ask the students, these are kids, right out of high school, how many people know Billie Holiday? At least half of them, maybe 2/3 of them, all know Billie Holiday. I mean, she's translating from generation to generation. This summer in July, it was 65 years since she died. So it will be the 65th anniversary of her death. And she's as alive and prevalent and, in the moment, at least with the young crowd. They all know Strange Fruit. Now, part of it is they know that Kanye covered it, not her version, by the way, because the estate wouldn't give him permission.
Whose version?
Nina Simone. He samples Nina Simone's version 3 or 4 albums back, when he was less crazy than he is now. But I think the body of work is timeless. You can listen to Lady in Satin, and it's as timely as it was when it came out in 1958.
In addition to Lady in Satin, it's Desert Island Times. You've got to pick half a dozen Billie Holiday albums to ride out the rest of your life. Which would they be?
Well, obviously, that would be the one I would listen to most. Probably next would be Lady Sings the Blues. There's so many good songs on that record. She re-recorded Strange Fruit. God Bless the Child is on it. And I forget, there are like 3 or 4 other major songs. Now or Nothing is probably a good record. Go back and get some of the Teddy Wilson stuff that she did. You need some of that. That would give you a sort of a range of her career.
That's on the I don't know if it still exists, but that double disc that was on Columbia for a while.
Yeah, they did a lot of recording for Columbia together.
There's the Benny Goodman and Teddy Wilson.
Mm-hmm. And Lester Young played on a lot of those records too.
Exactly. Okay. Do you have anything else to talk about? Because I don't.
I could ask you some questions. Can we do that? Yeah, I am a journalist.
All right.
Okay, what motivated you to buy this book in the first place?
I wanted to confirm your agent's estimation of my stupidity.
That was it?
No, what had happened was that I tend to be pretty obsessive compulsive about listening to music, and it just so happened that I'd gone through a Louis Armstrong moment, which lasted, I don't know, around 6 months. And I was somewhere, I forget, I think it was Odeon, and they were playing some Holiday, and all of a sudden I remembered Armstrong's influence on Holiday, and your agent happened to have been such a genius that he sent the proposal to me at around that time, and because I thought he was spying on me, I didn't read it for a while. Okay. And then I read it, and I felt that I was impressed by its revisionism, and felt that the time was ripe for a book about Holiday, especially after the Lee Daniels movie, which I think may have poisoned one's imagination of who she was and what she represented.
Well, that was such a despicable film on so many levels. She never had an affair with an FBN agent.
You said it's despicable, and if it's being taped, Lee Daniels is going to sue you. So.
Whatever. He should have made a better movie. No, I could go through the factual mistakes in that if Lee Daniels wants to hear about them, but I'm sure he knows they're there. Somebody's told him by now, surely.
What are two or three?
Well, for example, Billie Holiday never closed Cafe Society one night because Billie Holiday's dog died, and she had to go to the funeral. Seriously, this is in the movie. Can you imagine Barney Josephson closing Cafe Society because Billie Holiday's dog died? It's just ludicrous. Billie didn't go to any dog funerals. She loved her dog. She didn't go to they didn't have funerals. There was not a woman with a patch on her eye following around all the time in an entourage. That woman with the patch was completely made up. Billie didn't have an entourage. Billie didn't travel with it. Billie was Billie motherfucking Holiday. She didn't need an entourage. She showed up with her piano player and she played her tunes. That's what she did. She had her own hair, her own makeup, her own nails. She chose her own clothing. She had her own wardrobe. She didn't have an entourage following her around. And the whole way he confused all the men who were in her life, sort of all clumped in together, completely wrong. And she never had an affair with an FBN agent who was following her around. The concept that Billie would get involved with an FBN agent is just ludicrous. And she did not leave Lester Young standing on the side of the road in the South. For some reason, she left him standing in the movie. She left him standing on the side of the road in the South. I don't know, you know why, and drive off in a bus. Could you imagine her doing that to Lester Young?
Absolutely not.
So, anyway.
I suppose that's what goes under the rubric of dramatic license.
Well, the other thing that you did is that you didn't make me change the title. You didn't make me change the subtitle. You also didn't make me change the sort of overall point of the book, but you did make great suggestions about the narrative. Erroll, if you don't know, Erroll is a genius at narrative structure. That's what he's known for in the business. He's like the narrative whisperer. You can show him a book and he can read it, make 3 changes with the narrative strategy and it completely changed the book. And he'll take it from here,
all right.
And then it's here. And that's what Erroll is known for. And that's what you did with my book. And the book is much better because you did that.
Thank you so much. Any other questions you have for me?
Maybe we can take some questions from the audience.
Actually, when you talk about the movie one, why do you think he did that? Sorry, when you talk about the movie, why do you think he made all of those ridiculous things? One, and then two, do you think that maybe a documentary will come out of your book?
Well, that's an interesting idea. I've been approached already with that idea from someone. So maybe there will. I don't know, I'd certainly be open to it because we do need an accurate version of her life out there, which hasn't, there was one on the BBC 25 years ago, but it's not, you can't even track it down hardly now. Why Lee Daniels? Well, let's go back to Lady Sings the Blues. Why that movie was so off? Because when Billie died, she had no will, and she was still married to Louis McKay. And so he became the owner of her estate. And Barry Gordy for years had been obsessed with Billie Holiday. He wanted to make a movie about Billie Holiday for Diana Ross. So he went to Louis McKay and he said, well, yeah, you can have the rights, but I have script control. So the Billy D. Williams character, which is spectacular in the movie, is totally made up. Louis McKay was the worst of the 4 husbands, quote-unquote husbands, because she only married 2 of them, even though she told everybody she was married to the other ones. Totally made up. He was physically abusive, verbally abusive. He stole all of her money, and he would kick Pepe, her chihuahua. Who kicks a dog? Really. And that's Louis McKay. But if you look at the movie, it's completely, he's the knight in shining armor. So that's why that movie was off, is because of Louis McKay. I don't know why, because Lee Daniels didn't have that kind of limitation. Yeah. He could have made a good movie about her, but he became focused on this one concept, that she was pursued by the government because she wouldn't stop singing Strange Fruit. So he built this whole plot around that. And part of that is true. She made herself a target by singing Strange Fruit. And venues would ask her to stop singing it, asked, is euphemistic, And she was pursued. She saw the government agents following her around. But it wasn't just because she was singing Strange Fruit, it's because she was a powerful black woman in the entertainment business at a time that some people didn't think that was acceptable. And so she was a target. That would have been a good story to tell, but he focused on the Strange Fruit thing instead. Had the people coming in, or Harry Anslinger, the guy in charge of the FBN, showing up in her room at the end of the movie, in her hospital room, that never happened. None of that happened. It's all made up.
In the meantime, having Frank Sinatra show up, that would have been great.
He did. That actually did happen.
That's what I'm saying. Why not have Frank Sinatra?
Because that's actually in my book, it's a very moving scene. It's very powerful because they loved each other. They'd known each other for years. And, Billie always claimed she introduced him to Ava Gardner, which may have been true.
Thank you.
Sloppy seconds.
Now, Errol.
Yes, Mr. Alexander. My cousin is heir to Herbie Nichols' estate.
Oh, really?
He holds all his original compositions, including Serenade, that Billie Holiday turned into Lady Sings the Blues.
Yeah.
What's been a mystery to us is how did Billie Holiday and Herbie Nichols get together, or did they ever get together?
I don't think they ever got together like as a songwriting team. There was some reason why she needed to create a song quickly. And I forgot, I'm not sure if I put it in my book or not. Anyway, she had a motivation where she needed, because the book was coming out, she needed a song to go with it. So she knew about this Herbie Nichols. She knew a lot. She knew a lot of music that was out there. She was a connoisseur of music.
Oh.
And so she just knew and decided to put words to it. And that's how the song Lady Sings the Blues came. I'm not sure they ever worked together though.
Oh, maybe that's why.
Yeah, maybe not, because the music already existed.
Right.
She was able to hear it.
Right.
So I don't think they, like at the end, the last song she worked together on was with Mal Waldron, her pianist, and I described their working relationship in the book, where they were on a flight and they collaborated together. Billie wrote the lyrics, he helped with the lyrics, then she sang the melody that she heard in her head and he wrote it down. So that was a true collaboration between two artists. That's not what happened with Herbie Nichols.
Right. Well, I do have, they have the contract that she signed and he signed.
Well, he got the royalties.
Yeah, 50% royalty. So I guess it was like an industry thing where they just shared rights and she recorded the song.
Right, she did that with Arthur Herzog too. There were others that she had. Early on, she was in the studio all the time, so she had musicians who could help her out. So the first 5 songs I think she did was all sole credits, which is by Billie Holiday. But later on, when she wasn't in the studio as much, she started working one-on-one with composers, because Billie can neither read nor write music. So she needed someone who could, who understood music in a technical point of view to write up the songs. So she would collaborate with most of the songs except for one, after those first 5, she composed with somebody else.
Is it true that it's a signature song, or it's not true? Lady Sings the Blues.
Her
signature song, or the other song is her real signature.
She didn't consider Lady Sings the Blues her signature song.
Oh, okay.
In fact, the last year of her life, she rarely sang it.
Okay.
Rarely sang it. Oh, I know you. Yes. What are you doing here?
I have both a comment and a question. I'm a book publicist and I'm working with Billy D. Williams this week too on his, and I asked him yesterday about his playing Louis McKay.
He may have a whole different point of view.
No, he didn't. He said, I know this went against what he was, and he said, and I actually met him and I found him a very unsavory character. So he knew that he was—
From the horse's mouth.
Yes, from the horse's mouth.
Thank you, Billy D.
But I was just going to ask you, in addition to Frank Sinatra, are there other artists that you know of who who identify Billie as their kind of source for
Yeah.
inspiration. I mean, there are probably too many to
Yeah, Annie
name,
Ross
but-
adored
Annie
her.
Ross. And somebody just said to me, well, clearly Amy Winehouse had been
Oh, sure,
obviously
she's influenced. And Madeline Perot, as you know,
Yeah,
who, you know, I had a symposium last week that Madeline closed. And, you know, she was so moved just because everybody in the room were Billie Holiday fans, you know, so she finally found her people. And you know, Madeline's young, and Holiday's still, you know, Billie's still influencing people.
yeah.
But Yolande Devin, who was also there last week, was hugely influenced by Billie. Well, there's the story that Peggy Lee's entire act was stolen from Billie, and Tallulah Bankhead got drunk enough one night at a dinner to confront her and say, "You stole your whole act from Billie," and she didn't deny it. So Peggy Lee, I think, would fall in that category. But there were, I think Sinatra was right when he said that it was almost anyone in that generation that were influenced by her in some capacity.
To close, we shouldn't be too harsh on Billy and Lady Sings the Blues.
Billy D. or Billy?
Billy D.
Billy D.
He put the ladies in the seats.
It was a job. He had had a
The
couple of
ladies
good
in the
movies.
seats.
And then, you know, if you read the review coverage, it says that was the first black love story. So the fact that it was not factually correct, people went to see, you know, Billy D. Williams and Diana Ross. Who wouldn't go see that?